We are unconstrained. Let me just say that right off the bat as we go into the second half of this show. We are unconstrained. We are boundaryless, boundaryless. So I'm going to talk to you about something very, maybe a little bit unusual for a business show. However, there are many, many of our great entrepreneurs, people that have thought of new industries. I'm thinking of Steve Jobs. I'm thinking of, all kinds of people, and you know more of them than I do, who had an idea, or maybe even received an idea. Received an idea. I like to call it juice. In fact, the name of this little segment here of the show is Turn on the Juice. Turn on the juice. So I'm going to share with you a little story here. About 10 years ago, I was asked to speak to a group of people who were looking for a job. They'd been jobless for a while, and they met in the basement of this church and on a regular basis. And, they try to help each other out and trade leads and try to help improve each other's interviewing skills and resumes and so on and so forth. And I appreciated all that logistical support. I think that's really great and very helpful. But I wanted to bring something more intangible to the party. So I thought of this idea, and by the way, I thought of it in a dream, as I tend to do. I tend to rely heavily on the material that's being processed in dreams. So I came up with this notion of turn on the juice. That was those 4 words. And I'll never forget the night before I gave the presentation to these people, I went over to my mother-in-law's house, and she had a bunch of wonderful oranges. And the 2 of us sat there, and we peeled oranges. And it was fun doing that, and we kind of had a nice big plastic container there of oranges, and we got the peels off, put a lid on top of them. So the next day I had the opportunity to speak to these people, and I began visiting with them about the feeling of being unemployed and the feeling that you're not employable, the feeling that you're somehow not the right person for what the marketplace wants. You've tried this, you've tried that, you've tried to tweak your resume, you don't quite know what to do with yourself, you don't know what you believe in anymore, and deep down inside you feel dry. That's the analogy I'm going to say is you feel dry. I call it dry bones, which means no good ideas are rushing through your consciousness, right? So I started out the presentation like that, and I got this bowl. I started to bring it over here near me. And of course, they're all wondering, what's in the bowl, And I told them, I said, there is a way to get out of this mode, this mental pattern, this emotional pattern, and start thinking of yourself as an abundant resource for these people, to reestablish your self-esteem, to reestablish your motivation, your enthusiasm about life, to think better of yourself, to think better of the people that you're talking to, right? And really see the whole situation that you're in from a completely different perspective. And all of a sudden begin to see everything as a point of discovery and a point of enthusiasm, because now you can kind of step aside, put everything you've done in the past, kind of shove it over here and say, that's all good and well, but I'm going to start fresh today. I'm going to start fresh now this moment. So I reached my hand into the bowl, took off the lid, and I pulled out these 2 oranges, right? And I told him, I said, when you connect with your true spirit inside of you and you're open to receiving creativity, which kind of comes into you, I'm going to talk about that in a minute, kind of comes into you. It's almost as if you receive it. If you have the right kind of an attitude, it comes to you. And all of a sudden, I lift my hands up above here, and there's this other open container here, and I began to squeeze the juice. And I said, when life pressures you and squeezes you, and the bill collectors call, and the people call and say, well, we chose somebody else, sorry, and everything starts to clamp down on you, and exert pressure on you from the outside, that's when you need to discover the juice inside of you, the real spirit that you've covered up and has been there all this time, and you have it. Everyone has it, but sometimes it doesn't emerge until you have this adversity, right? And so that's what it looks like. And I'm talking like this, and I'm saying you need to turn on the juice. And I began to squeeze these 2 oranges while I'm chatting with them, and the juice is dribbling out, and people couldn't believe it in the audience, and people started standing up and applauding and hooting and hollering. Somehow they were connecting with this idea. They wanted to be told, and they wanted to believe that there was something inside of them that was bigger than the circumstances, the dry bone circumstances that they were a part of at this moment. Very interesting. And by the way, the turn on the juice phrase, I mean, obviously that has an electrical, it's like a switch, right? Like an electrical thing, but here I got oranges in my hand, right? So it didn't seem to matter. The metaphors somehow worked anyway. People got it. People got it. And so after that was all over, I went and thought about it some more, and I played around with the idea, and I started doing some research on what this would be. What is this energy that I feel only on now and then? You know, I want to be able to turn it on myself at any certain point in time and create, right? Create new things, make things happen, do things, right? And so I started doing the research, and I find out that there's, in the Hindu culture, there's something called prana, right, which is the air that we breathe and so on. In the Chinese culture, there's qi, which is qi, or chi, chi, right? Acupuncture utilizes this. They believe that there are electrical nodes inside of our body, and they have to be moved or manipulated or worked with and so on, and they release energy, right? It's very interesting. And then I got this other book by Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. It's a weird name. This gentleman's a brilliant guy, and he's done a lot of research, and he came up with a book called Flow. Right? I think everybody in the world knows what the word flow is, kind of like go with the flow, but nobody really has read this man's book. It's amazing what he seems to understand, this notion about entering this place, right, where there's no distraction, where you are doing your thing and your thing only, and you're receiving revelations, you're receiving insights, and you can go from here to here, and from here to here, and you can make things happen, and you have new ideas here, and you're writing them down, and then you're visualizing them over here, and so on, and you're creating and manifesting this incredible number of ideas. There are no boundaries, no limitations. This is what people who are looking for a job need to feel. Under these circumstances, this happened to me one Sunday morning. My entire family was gone. I was by myself there at home. I don't know what happened, what it was that triggered this, but I quote unquote, turned on the juice. I received the juice. I received some kind of, energetic inspiration. I had no doubts about whether or not this was going on. I didn't question it. There wasn't any lack of confidence. There wasn't any doubt. And it wasn't any, I don't know about that. I was moving quickly, and I thought of an idea for a company. Then I thought of an idea for a white paper that I needed to write. Then I thought of the name of a website that I needed to design. Seriously, this is how it went. And then I went over here and I started writing a little poem, and then I began painting with some oil paints. It took about 2.5 hours. I was under the influence of this energy, and I was creating at every turn, and somehow everything was related. It was an amazing thing. It was an amazing thing. And it's something that we can all do. It actually is a trainable state of mind, right? And if we could assume this, if we could turn on the juice, so to speak, we could walk into situations which seem untenable and turn them into a wonderful learning experience, right? It's all about growth. It's all about connections. It's all about synchronicity, right? When something happens over here and something happens over here and they don't seem to be connected at all. I didn't mean to do that, but then I stumbled on this and I was thinking about this, and then this came up, and it actually pulls the both of these together. How did that happen? This is a state of mind that is achievable by all human beings. It's called turn on the juice. It's a wonderful thing. It's helpful for anybody who feels stuck. Anybody who feels stuck needs to think about this idea. And I'm very happy to be able to just share this with you, because as I go older in my life, I become more and more creative, and this idea becomes more and more important. And yet, as I launch more and more ambitious projects like this particular TV show, I run into more and more barriers, more and more walls. And so it's absolutely essential that I'm able to assume this feeling. It's a vision, and then a thought, and then finally a feeling. That's right. So we are so glad to have you with us here today. We've talked about trends, which kind of open up your notion of what reality is today, and possibly how your company can take advantage of some of these trends. Certainly think about the end user of your product in different ways. Realize that they're not the same buyer as they were 10 years ago. But most importantly, we kind of went inside today in WOWBIZ Nebraska I'm so pleased that you joined me here. I'm Lynn Hinderrocker, and I try to do imaginative and creative things in the consulting world. I help businesses grow. I help human beings grow. I energize organizations, help them realize they're capable of doing more than they realized before. That's why we've recently launched my firm, Nebraska. You might know about that already. It's starting to get around, which is, of course, a business training regimen that I personally spearhead. So thank you once again for joining me here. Next time you turn on WOWBIZ Nebraska, we'll have Bruce Arendt back, my co-creator and commentator, and he'll be debating the relative strengths and weaknesses of alliances, joint ventures, cross-promotions, partnerships, and the whole notion of working with other people or other small companies trying to do something, trying to make 1 + 1 = 3. Thank you so much for watching. Curzon Promotional Graphics, alphatech1.com. Check them out. And we'll see you next time right here on WOWBIZ Nebraska. I'm Lynn Hinderrocker, and thank you so much. Thank you.